The sky was the color of lead the night Robert Long disappeared. A December fog had rolled over Long Island like a cold blanket, shrouding the neighborhoods in a silence only winter could bring. The streets glistened from an earlier rain, and the wind pushed softly through the trees, making them whisper to one another like old men trading secrets. Robert wasn't a man who made headlines. He wasn't the sort to attract attention, cause trouble, or live dangerously. He was, by all accounts, an ordinary man, unremarkable in the way that made him comforting. He had a modest home, a loyal wife, a small circle of family and friends. He liked coffee early in the morning and long drives with no destination in mind. He wasn't dramatic, he wasn't loud, he wasn't the kind of person who just vanished. But on the evening of December 3rd, 2010, Robert Long did just that. He left his home in his silver Chrysler PT Cruiser. He didn't tell his wife, Joanne, exactly where he was going. Maybe he didn't know himself. He often took drives when he needed to think, when life felt a little too noisy. But this time, something was different. He didn't come home. When Joanne woke up the next morning and found his side of the bed untouched, her stomach turned. She checked her phone, no messages. She called his, but it rang and rang before going to voicemail. She waited another hour, then another. By noon, she was pacing. By evening, she was on the phone with the Suffolk County Police Department, reporting her husband missing. The officers were polite, but measured. Maybe he just needed some time, one said. It's only been a day. But Joanne knew her husband. This wasn't like him, not even close. By day 3, the search was on. Police cruisers combed nearby neighborhoods, helicopters flew overhead, their searchlights slicing through the trees. Drones weren't as common back then, so they relied on foot patrols, dogs, and instinct. But there were no signs, not a single piece of evidence, no skid marks, no debris, no camera footage, no sightings. It was as if the fog itself had taken Robert. The days stretched into weeks. Volunteers passed out flyers at gas stations and grocery stores. His face was plastered across telephone poles and diner windows. Missing, Robert Long, last seen driving a Chrysler PT Cruiser. Joanne called local hospitals, homeless shelters, morgues, nothing. And then, silence. The investigation went cold. Friends stopped asking. Reporters moved on. The flyers faded, peeled, and disappeared. The police added Robert to a long list of missing persons whose files sat in drawers, waiting for a break that might never come. But Joanne never gave up. Every night she left the porch light on. Every month she posted something on social media, a memory, a plea, a reminder that her husband mattered. Still missing, she'd write, still searching. Years passed.
Birthdays came and went. Holidays were hard. The anniversaries were worse. Joanne aged, but the image of Robert in her mind remained frozen in time. His smile, his laugh, the way he tapped the steering wheel to old songs on the radio. She dreamed of him often. Sometimes he was just walking in the front door, as if he'd been gone 5 minutes. Sometimes he was calling from a place he couldn't name. "I'm okay," he'd whisper. "I just can't come home yet." And still, she waited. Unbeknownst to her, Robert had never left Long Island. He hadn't crossed state lines or started a new life. He hadn't been kidnapped or trafficked or buried in some remote forest. He'd been right there, in Mount Sinai Harbor, less than 10 miles from home. For nearly 15 years, he rested in silence beneath the water, his car submerged just yards from the Cedar Beach boat ramp. Tourists strolled past him. Fishermen cast their lines nearby. Children played on the shore above him. And no one knew. Not until June 30th, 2025. It started with a beep on a sonar screen. That day, a team of volunteer divers from Exploring with a Mission along with adventures with purpose, had come to Long Island. They were searching for vehicles, hoping to solve cold cases and bring families peace. Using high-frequency sonar, they scanned the harbor floor, watching the screen for anomalies. And then they saw it. A shadowy outline, boxy, about the size of a car. They slowed their boat, re-scanned. This wasn't a rock. It wasn't a log. It was something man-made. They deployed a diver. The water was thick with silt. Visibility was low. The diver dropped slowly, light in hand. As the shape grew clearer, so did the truth. It was a Chrysler PT Cruiser, silver, covered in rust and barnacles, and it wasn't empty. Inside the vehicle was the unmistakable sight of human remains: a skull, ribs, a skeleton slumped forward in the driver's seat, still wearing fragments of clothing. Around the body were everyday items: a keychain, a wallet, a crumbled receipt. The diver surfaced and made the call. Police arrived within the hour. The scene was secured. By the next day, July 1st, 2025, the car was raised from the water using a crane. Reporters watched from the shore. The vehicle creaked and groaned as it emerged, dripping from the harbor. As water poured from its shattered windows, a silence fell over the crowd. The plate matched the one from the 2010 report. It was her husband was gone.
But at least he was no longer lost. The Suffolk County Medical Examiner took the remains for analysis. Dental records were reviewed. DNA samples were processed. Within days, the confirmation came. The body was indeed Robert Long. Cause of death, however, would take longer to determine. The car showed no signs of external impact, no forced entry, no broken windows from the outside. It was intact, aside from the shattered glass likely caused by water pressure or deterioration over time. The steering wheel was locked, the seatbelt had eroded, everything else was preserved, as if frozen in time. How had no one found him sooner? The area where the car was discovered wasn't remote. In fact, it was near a popular boat ramp. But the depth of the harbor, combined with murky water and silt buildup, made it a perfect hiding place. Even divers admitted it was a miracle they found it at all. The car had settled into a depression on the harbor floor and had likely been covered by layers of sand and algae for years. The dive team, many of whom had worked on dozens of recoveries, were stunned. "This was one of the closest cases we've ever solved," one diver said. "So close to home, so close to the surface, and no one had any idea." The story made national headlines. 15-year-old cold case solved, one outlet declared. "Missing man found in harbor," read another. Joanne posted a statement online. "After all these years, Robert has been found. We are grateful beyond words to the people who brought him home. Our hearts are heavy, but we finally have peace." Across the country, the case sparked new interest in cold cases and missing persons. Dive teams began scanning more lakes and rivers. Police departments reviewed their old files. Families held on to new hope. But for Joanne, the story was personal. She held a small memorial at the house they once shared. Friends gathered, neighbors brought food, stories were told. Some sad, some funny, all filled with love. Joanne placed Robert's photo by the window, next to a candle. At the harbor, the sun was setting. The water shimmered, calm and indifferent. A boy cast his line from the dock. A couple strolled by, hand in hand. No one knew that just beneath their feet, for 15 years, a man had waited to be found, and now he had been.